Welcome to Certain Point of View, your first step into a much nerdier world. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on iTunes. Just go to certainpov.com. Thanks. And now your hosts, Ben Milton and Addy Thomas.
Hey, Nerf Herders, I'm Addy Thomas.
And I am Ben Milton.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Certain Point of View. Really thank you for tuning in. Be sure to share the podcast with your friends and family. You can always find out all the different ways you can subscribe, all the different ways to follow us. All of that is on our website, certainpov.com. Ben, how you doing?
You know, I'm good. Kids are back in school. So having all this extra time on my hands has led to me to just doing like a ton of work.
Oh, yeah?
And catching up on bills and stuff. So yeah, like I'm happy as a pig in crap right now. Like it is like not having to deal with my kids 24/7.
Yeah.
I never thought I would be that dad who's like, oh, I'm so glad my kids are in school. Glad to be rid of those little monsters.
That seems to be you.
I didn't want to be that dad.
Yeah.
I always kind of imagined I'd be like, no, you know, like I'm gonna like because I hate school.
Yeah.
Right. It's like so I would be like, no, I'm not sending my kid to school. We're gonna keep them home. We're gonna go to the zoo or whatever. Like something stupid like that. Like or we're gonna go see a movie, a matinee, and watch Star Wars all weekend. All week long.
Well, I still expect
on the weekend, yeah, but during the week, I'm like, get them little bastards out of my house and into school where they can bother somebody else. I'm so happy to be free of them. I love them, but I'm so happy to be free of them.
Yeah, for me, it's the exact opposite. I have been swamped at work, and there might be a couple days where I need to stay a little longer which is very out of the norm for me at work.
That's good though. It's nice to know that maybe there's some job security.
Yeah, that is a nice thing about my position at work is there is definitely job security in it. It's one of the few positions there that is pretty essential. If they have to downsize, that's not one of the jobs they can easily downsize. They have to do some drastic work with the workload to begin with,
right?
To make that happen. But
that's good.
Yeah. So
go us.
Yes, yay! We're employed and
yay,
somewhat satisfied with what we're doing. Although there's lots of things that are up in the air, with the future. But we'll see how that goes. But I'm excited about what's happening with some of our other shows, though.
Yes,
since we are planning to split those out.
Yeah, so like we've been doing Another Pass, and we've been doing Scruffy Nerf Herders, the role-playing game, like all within this feed. And we're going to break them apart into their own separate feeds this month so that it's less confusing for everybody as to like what's happening.
Yeah, you know what to expect from this.
Because we have some people who are listening just for one of those things, and they're having to sift through two of the other things.
Right.
So we're going to make it really easy for everybody where you can just get exactly what you want. So I have the feed set up. I'm waiting for approval from iTunes to get the feeds on iTunes and stuff like that. The web page is going to remain the same, but all the feeds will be broken up into separate iTunes shows. So if you're a Scruffy Nerf Herders fan, there will be a Scruffy Nerf Herders show specifically for you. And when the new episode comes out, like we'll probably do 1 or 2 episodes on both just to kind of make the transition and let you know. Or I don't know how we're going to do it. We're still figuring that out.
And with this show, we're going to continue having the new show be our sort of our week-to-week show. And sometimes, we've been finding that sometimes, like, when we come out of a movie, there's not really that much we can say. Sometimes we're on, like, either a high excitement or very, like, oh, that was not a very good movie. Yeah, exactly. So we haven't gotten some of the depth that we get on, like, the movies where we revisit them. Like Batman vs. Superman, Force Awakens, and
Rogue One.
And Rogue One, we've revisited multiple times. And that's where we've actually gotten into interesting territory with those. Yeah. And I think we'll still dedicate episodes to big topics like that when we feel, as bonus episodes, when we feel that they really deserve that kind of discussion. We can still have those, like the Grey Jedi episode kind of discussion, or different topics like that when they really lend themselves to it. But instead of forcing out an episode about,
I'm just like, yeah, we liked it. Yeah, it was good. It had stuff, and I really noticed that like when we did the Spider-Man Homecoming review, felt very like, yeah, we liked it. Yeah, I liked it. It was good.
And I think what will be very interesting is if we do an episode about all the Spider-Man movies and really like get into what we liked about it and whether it has staying power.
Yeah, my problem. I'm a processor. Like it takes me a while to kind of like formulate my thoughts, which is why I'm not very good at like when people try to get into a debate with me. I tend to not be able to process it fast enough to keep up with the debate.
I don't know about that. I don't know if I'd say that. I think though.
Well, if I've thought about it already before,
yeah,
I'm able to debate it but it takes me a while to think about it.
I don't know. You had some pretty fresh thoughts about Dark Knight Rises even as we got out of the movie. I think though you and I both have sort of a thought process and I think that separates us from a number of different podcasts in that our review right after a movie isn't guaranteed to stay that way.
Yeah. I'm willing to change my mind.
Yeah, and that and I know that's frustrating for some people that I know. Like there's one guy one of my really good friends, David, he gets frustrated when like my thought on a movie changes after seeing it. Yeah, and that sometimes happens with movies that I initially thought were really bad, but also with movies that I initially thought were really good, and that opinion changes as I actually process it, or different things kind of happen in the movie world. And I think that's the way all of us are. Like a top 10 list for anybody should be shifting.
Oh, mine shifts like hourly.
Right. You ask me before and after lunch, it can be two totally different.
Depending on what I ate.
Right.
Will completely influence it.
Well, we'll go ahead and get to the news because we actually have a lot in this particular episode. There's a lot that was happening in the nerd world that I actually had to cut some options this time. So let's get to it. So if you've ever wanted to gather around the fireplace at Christmas and tell the tale of John McClane with whimsical illustrations, well, you don't have to wait much longer. A Die Hard Christmas, the illustrated holiday classic written by comedian Dougie Horner and illustrated by J.J. Harrison will be available this October 17th.
All right, maybe I'm just a bad parent, but if I'm gonna like tell the tale of John McClane at Christmas time,
just watch the movie.
I'm just gonna watch the movie. I'm not gonna read a book to my kids. It's just not gonna happen. Not that book.
Well, so it looks like this will be very much like like Samuel L. Jackson reading "Go the Fuck to Sleep" type of kids' book. So
right, I mean,
it might be fun.
It might be fun.
Yeah,
probably
not for kids.
Probably not for kids. More for adults, obviously, and that's the case.
Do you consider Die Hard though a Christmas movie?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad we're on the same page.
Yeah.
With that.
Is it? Do people not?
I don't think people typically put that in the same category as, A Christmas Carol or It's a Wonderful Life.
I'll watch it before It's a Wonderful Life every year. You know what else I put in that list? Lethal Weapon. Because it starts with the hooker falling off the building
right, during
while
Christmas,
listening to Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree.
That's right.
Every time I hear "Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree," I think
of Lethal Weapon?
I think
Home Alone.
I think of hookers and blow.
Oh, well, sometimes the dynamics within a group of friends gets drastically changed when a new member is added to the group. So far, buzz about a new member being added to a super team isn't going over well with fans, though. Later this month, a fourth Powerpuff Girl will join the iconic trio in their adventures to protect Townsville. She'll be introduced in the Powerpuff Girls Power of Four, a 5-part movie event. Why is that not a 4-part movie event?
Because it's ironic.
It is Powerpuff
No,
Girls.
because you need to have that 5th episode where she goes away and then takes it back to the original.
Oh, you think they'll take it back? You don't think they'll keep it?
No.
Yeah.
No.
So
that's my theory.
Yeah.
I'm totally for this, by the way.
Yeah.
I think this is a great idea.
Yeah, because it's not they're the Powerpuff 3.
No, they're the Powerpuff Girls. As long as she's a chick, it's totally cool.
Yeah.
I like this idea, and I like when they add new, even if it's like the X-Men. I like when you get somebody new
team
into
shakeups.
The mix. Yeah, I like a good team shakeup.
Do you need Bubbles to die? Sort of
I don't need Bubbles to die.
Bubbles,
God, no, man. What's wrong with you?
Well, you said comics, so my first thought was Death of Wolverine, the X-Men.
Right away, you go to killing heroes. What is wrong with you?
You went to X-Men. X-Men deaths are as common. Of course she'd be resurrected in an event.
In an event, she'd be resurrected 6 pages later.
Yeah, it's temporary, but so you'll have Death of Bubbles and then Bubbles rebirth.
No, No, I don't need that. I just add somebody into the mix. I think it's a good move. We just did it in Voltron.
Yeah,
we just did it in Voltron, and it
with
works.
Hero, yeah,
works totally great.
Again, death in the comic book sense.
I guess no, but not Bubbles. God damn it, man.
Buttercup.
I can't kill any of them. I love them
Buttercup
all.
is always with the one with a bit of a darker.
Yeah. But I kind of admire that about her.
So here's the thing, because I know you're a huge Powerpuff Girls fan, and that's not a bad thing. That's a great thing.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, Mojo Jojo
is
easily
maybe the greatest villain of all time.
Definitely. I mean,
I'd put him up there with Magneto and Joker, for the record.
Yeah, I'd go with that. I mean, like, he feels straight out of he's a Flash villain, basically.
But he's better.
Like I need a Mojo Jojo Grodd crossover, to be perfectly honest.
Can you imagine if those two teamed up?
Yeah. It'd be
the
fun.
shenanigans that would happen would be
Ultra Human.
Oh my god, it would be the best.
the monkey business team up.
Yes. Oh, it'd be so good.
So the question I was actually going to ask you.
Oh, there was a question.
Yes, I was building to it, but I got sidetracked a couple times. What is your pick for a new Powerpuff Girl? Let's say it's a permanent member. What would be the name?
Let's see. We got Blossom, Buttercup, and Bubbles.
Yeah.
It's got to be a B.
Yeah.
So
that's a tougher question then.
I have to think about that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We might have to get your answer next episode.
Maybe we should let's have a contest where people write in what they think it would be, and
we could dig up something as a giveaway. Yeah. We've got prizes,
stickers and stuff that we can give away.
That's right.
Let's do that. So the best name that somebody comes up with, we'll send them a free sticker.
Sweet. Yeah.
All right.
I like it. So Deadline is reporting that the cult 80s TV show The Greatest American Hero is being rebooted again at ABC. The original show was about an unassuming white man who was given an alien supersuit that allowed him to save the world. This version has the same basic premise, except that the lead character is Mira, a 30-year-old Indian-American woman from Cleveland, whose talents include tequila drinking and karaoke, and not much else. The half-hour single-camera sitcom is being written and produced by Fresh Off the Boat's Rachna Fruchtborn. ABC has given it a put pilot deal, which means it'll at least air the first episode.
It's a franchise worth rebooting, frankly. It was I'm shocked that it hasn't been rebooted.
Well, there have been many attempts. Lord and Miller actually were attached to one of the attempts, and it didn't
I can't believe that it's never taken off, because I mean, it was a great show, like a lot of fun, and in this era of everybody being into superhero movies and stuff like that, like it seems like a perfect spoof show. Like it's time for the show. Now, whether or not I guess we'll see how many alcoholic Indian women from the Midwest are really going to be watching this show to pull viewership.
Here's the thing.
See.
That was sort of an interesting lead to throw out there. I'm okay with it. What actually makes me feel a little bit more encouraged is the writer for this, the writer and producer, because I really love Fresh Off the Boat. I think
is it really good? I've never seen it.
Yeah, I really love Fresh Off the Boat. Like
okay.
I watched it. So I subbed to Hulu basically for Rick and Morty, and I decided to explore a couple shows. I went on 2 binges very shortly after getting Hulu, and it was Blackish and Fresh Off the Boat.
Okay.
I totally love that, and to the point where now, during the current season, each week as an episode was going out,
You're actually paying attention. And
which is rare, especially now binge-worthy TV. Like I usually wait for a season to be over and then go and binge it.
But you're actually watching along with.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, I mean, we'll see. Like I said, this is a franchise I really like, so I hope it's good.
Futurama has seen a couple cancellations and revivals, but its next revival will be a slightly different form. Nerdist is paired with the creators of the show to create a brand new radio play that ties into the show's latest mobile game, Futurama World of Tomorrow, a mobile game that's a mix of The Simpsons Tapped Out with a turn-based RPG. The radio play will be released September 14th.
I'm one of 8 people on this planet that just doesn't give a shit about Futurama. This show has been...
You did not write that way. I thought you did care.
No, it doesn't care.
You never liked it?
I've never been able to get into Futurama.
Really?
Bender was okay. This show has been canceled how many times now? It's
been hard to get into it because of those cancellations.
No, it's been hard to get into it because it's not that good. That's why it gets canceled. It's over.
Is it overrated? Yes. I will give you that. There are some very diehard fans, and it's also what I'm about to say. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, this would have been a great statement, but it's better than The Simpsons.
Yeah. I mean, like if you're ranking, like okay, let's rank like the cartoon.
Actually, make that 20 years ago. Sorry.
Yeah, like in the rankings of like cartoon entertainment, South Park #1, Rick and Morty #2,
yeah. Bojack Horseman.
Bojack
yes.
Horseman. There's plenty of other cartoon shows that I will watch over Futurama.
Yeah, but at the time that this came out, like The Simpsons. And
by the time
this
came out, Simpsons was already long past its glory days.
That's true. Yeah,
and this was just like kind of riding on that. So I'm not that excited about this show. It's okay. It's not a bad show, but I would never go out of my way to do something Futurama. It's just me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Not everything is for everybody. This
true.
one is not for me because it is a shit show.
All right. Well, Fox has hired the Martian screenwriter Drew Goddard to direct and write X-Men spinoff movie X-Force. This movie will be centered on Deadpool and Cable, who lead a band of ruthless mutant warriors. Producers are Simon Kinberg, Ryan Reynolds, and Lauren Schuler-Donner. So
my fingers are crossed on this one, and this is challenging for me because my fingers are still crossed for Deadpool 2.
Yeah.
Because how excited I am about this movie is going to be completely dependent upon how successful and how good Deadpool 2 is. If Deadpool 2 is just sort of average and kind of misses a little bit, I'm not that excited for X-Force.
I'm still excited for X-Force, even if Deadpool 2 is average. If it's a miss, then that does change things. That being said, so I haven't seen The Martian, so I'm probably one of, again, 8 people in the world who hasn't seen The Martian.
It's good.
Yeah.
Science makes no sense, but whatever.
I mean, science fiction movies almost never do anyway.
Yeah, it's science fiction. It's cool.
I do like Drew Goddard. He's sort of in that, like, Joss Whedon like coaching tree of directors. And he is also the guy who wrote the bulk of Daredevil season 1. He was the original showrunner.
Oh, well, that's a good sign.
Yeah, so because then it was passed on to Stephen DeKnight, and then Stephen DeKnight didn't do season 2 because he got hired for Pacific Rim. So both of these guys have been like in crazy demand, and they've got these guys. Those 2 names have actually been like taken over to a couple other projects. Like they've made the jump from TV to film in a big way. So he seems to be one of the more promising names.
That's
in
good.
TV right
See, that's
now.
why I'm glad you're on this show because you actually pay attention to that stuff. I'm like, you're listing these names. I'm like, I have no idea until you say the show. That I'm like, oh well, that was a good season. I like that.
But this is a guy who was working with Joss Whedon on stuff like Buffy and Firefly. He was also, I think he directed the movie Cabin in the Woods, a movie I also did not see, but I've heard great things about. So J Mike gave it 2
thumbs up. Wow.
Yeah. If it was 1, I would have been iffy because 1 J Mike thumb is like I don't know.
Probably sucks.
Yeah. 2, you know what? It could be like, because J Mike has those like, I've been watching the show all along, but like we just find out about it like Archer and Rick and Morty that he never told us about, and we were late to the party on.
Yeah, dick.
So 2 thumbs might be that.
It might be. It might be. Who knows? To me, it still really is dependent upon what they establish in Deadpool 2.
That's true, but what's reassuring a little bit is that they're going into other directions other than sort of the Martin Luther King versus Malcolm X conflict. Of Xavier versus Magneto.
Yeah,
and that's what's also sort of encouraging about
it's
the
not
other
a Dark Phoenix story.
Right? It's not a Phoenix story that has also been confirmed that won't be going into space.
Who is going to be the other members of the X-Force? If we don't get Dupe, I'm going to be so disappointed.
Dupe is not going to be in this movie.
No, Dupe's not going to be in it. Well, he might be. He might like have a cameo.
That's true. You might see him like a background cameo. Yeah. Just like maybe
after credit scene or something like that.
Who would you cast as Dupe?
Paul Giamatti.
Oh, I was going to go with H. John Benjamin.
Yes. Yes.
And with either a live-action Warwick Davis or CG.
Just throw a bunch of slime on Warwick Davis.
Right. Well, but outside of Dupe, who else would you like to see?
Bishop, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who else.
I'd like to see X-23. Not necessarily Daphne Keane, although she was great in
But a
Logan.
more adult.
Yeah, I think you need a more adult one for a much for X-Force.
Probably.
Yeah.
Man, there's so many good.
If Psylocke wasn't so bad in Apocalypse,
A different version of Psylocke, a more.
I wanted Olivia Munn to do well, but they
didn't give her anything.
Poorly.
Yeah, they didn't give her anything to do.
So I mean, maybe there's room for redemption with that. I mean, Ryan Reynolds came back from the grave.
Yeah, so maybe he'll be forgiving and loving and give Olivia Munn something to do. She's got time on her hands now that she's not with A.A. Ron.
Yeah. Oh, that was sad.
Nah, I'm all right with it.
All right, so Len Wein, the influential comics writer who co-created Marvel's Wolverine and DC's Swamp Thing, and who helped revive the X-Men series in the 70s, has died. Wein had recently been struggling with a number of health issues and passed at the age of 69.
I mean, two hugely super iconic characters that he had his hand in. I mean, you talk about Wolverine, like Wolverine was such a big deal in the 90s and continues to be today.
Yeah,
like,
easily.
Really the most popular character that Marvel had.
Yeah, I mean, he's easily top 4, maybe you could make an argument for number 2 after Spider-Man, you know?
Yeah, and depending on like when you started reading, you could even make an argument for number 1.
Yeah. I think Spider-Man is easily Marvel's number 1 character, though. That guy sells like crazy. That's why Sony will never let go of him.
Yeah, and that's why Fox will never let go of Wolverine.
Yeah, exactly.
And why they made so many movies with Hugh Jackman.
Right.
I mean, it's such an iconic character, and it's hard to get right. And there's just been like so many great stories with both of those characters. I mean, even in DC's had like some really good Swamp Thing runs and stuff like that. It's a character I'm not as familiar with, but I know like people who love DC. Like I never hear anybody talk shit about Swamp Thing.
Right, and like his description sounds like it's pretty terrible.
It's just a horrible name.
Yeah.
Swamp
well, at least it's not
Thing.
Man Thing.
Man Thing is the worst. Man Thing is the worst.
Especially when you get a giant-sized issue. So you had a giant-sized Man Thing. Coming back
so dirty.
Coming back to Len Wein, though. So Wein apparently, though, was also a big part of sort of like the big, like not just the revival of the X-Men, but sort of one of its more popular and recognizable forms, because he wanted to apparently he was the guy who kind of took them international in terms of their roster. So because he was the guy who brought Storm onto the team, Colossus, Nightcrawler, and of course Thunderbird and Wolverine, I think, was his initial lineup.
He's Canadian.
Yeah, exactly. So
which is kind of international.
Yeah, well, his only
like America Light.
Yeah, but his only American, like U.S. guy is Thunderbird, and even then, like U.S. Light.
Yeah, I mean, technically
he's
from a different country too.
That's true. All right, well, Marvel Comics' Star Wars title will be passing the torch, actually, to a new writer. Jason Aaron's final issue will be number 37 out on October 4th. He will be passing the role to Kieran Gillen, who wrote the Darth Vader title, which we have raved about several times. It's the Darth Vader title that wrapped up last year, and that was the Darth Vader title that took place in between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back.
This is great news if Gillen is able to kind of capture lightning in a bottle like he did with that Darth Vader title and bring that same level of storytelling and just creativity to the pages that he did with Darth Vader. I'm hopeful for it.
Yeah, Jason Aaron's done a great run. I've absolutely enjoyed the bulk of his run. Gillen created some new characters for Star Wars lore that I think are fascinating. Dr. Aphra, the two evil versions
KB
of BT something.
Yeah,
I forget
the
evil version of 3PO and R2 basically. Yeah. And he also brought really good depth. He mined the depth of Vader not just as a character, but also has been part of this path of helping correct the prequels in terms of bringing badass back to Darth Vader. What I think reassures me, or at least makes me optimistic, is that he was able to do a lot of really cool development with Vader, which is a very tough thing to do with a character who doesn't have a face, that is stone cold expressionless,
right?
But yet was able to do so much with that, and has also been working alongside Jason Aaron while building his Vader series, because they did have a lot of crossover with both runs. So it's a world he's definitely it's a part of the Star Wars story he's very familiar with.
Right.
So that does make me excited excited to see what direction they take this story.
Well, the nice thing is with the way that Story Group is working is that you're not going to get too many real shitters.
Yeah.
Like there is some quality control going on of like, hey, you can do this, you can't do that.
Right.
And everything kind of has to work together and mesh together really well. So, I mean, I'm not crapping at all on Jason Aaron's run. It wasn't a bad run at all. But I am more excited to see what Gillen's going to do.
Exactly. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. will see a familiar face that isn't Grant Ward, at least not for the moment. Nick Blood will return as Agent Lance Hunter, who was written off at the end of Season 3 with Adrian Palicki's Bobby Morse, or better known as Mockingbird. They were expected to get their own spinoff, but ABC passed on it.
So this is great news. And now that Palicki's on that Entropy or whatever the
hell.
Orville, that's what it's called. that thing is going to get canceled anytime
Early
now.
review, like the first episode already came out. And we didn't even bother listing it on our What's Coming Up.
Yeah, because it looked awful.
Yeah, I didn't laugh once during any of those TV spots or trailers.
They looked awful.
Yeah. I think it may already be canceled because its early reviews and numbers are apparently pretty bad.
I'm not shocked by that, to be honest with you. So she is probably going to come back mid-season.
Nice.
That's
I'm
my
all
theory.
for that.
That's my theory on this because I would love to have both of them back. They were both great, fun characters on that show. So, and I especially like his character. Lance Hunter was a lot of fun on that show. To have him back is going to be great.
For that group.
Yep.
So according to Variety, the IMAX investment means Inhumans is effectively paid for regardless of its theatrical performance or how many viewers it actually draws in on ABC. That could explain why Marvel appeared to scrimp and save on the show and why the costumes and special effects were problematic. Sources tell the trade that ABC had concerns over the quality of Inhumans, including both the special effects of early cuts and the underpinning scripts from the start, and those have become a source of contention between ABC and Marvel. It's also thought that the box office numbers will bring a halt to any future investments from IMAX, and that means they're on their own if Season 2 happens.
This show has problems. It's undeniably bad. Like we saw the first 2 episodes in IMAX. And it was not impressive. It wasn't where it was like, holy shit, I can't wait to see what happens next.
Yeah, I'll be fine if I never see another episode of it. I'll watch the series for the first season as much as I did Gotham Season 1.
Just out of guilt and duty.
I'm giving it a legitimate chance, a Season 1 chance.
Yeah.
I did it with Supergirl, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Fair enough. But we're dealing with Scott. Is it Scott Buck?
Yeah, it's Scott Buck.
So I don't have a lot of hope for this show.
Yeah, I know.
I'm the biggest Marvel fanboy there is, and I'm ready to get off this train already.
Well, with the announcement of Disney's own streaming service, there had been conflicting reports concerning Disney and Marvel's current partnership. Deadline reports that Disney officially has decided to pull both Marvel and Star Wars content from Netflix in 2019, as was revealed by Disney CEO Bob Iger in a recent investor meeting.
So is this just the movies, or does this include like the shows, like the Defenders universe?
So here's the thing. It absolutely includes the movies.
Right.
And it also includes a lot of the kids' content. I can't imagine they're going to pull any of the Defenders.
My impression was,
of reasons.
Yeah, they had like that. That's a different type of deal, right?
Yeah, and as far as distribution, I mean, as the guys as Netflix produced it in partnership with them, it seemed really weird that they'd pull that. I wonder what it means for the future of these, of the Marvel Netflix universe. I mean, I can't imagine that they won't continue it because they've been received so well.
It's working.
So,
you may charge Netflix more to do it.
Yeah, and I think it becomes kind of like that. Instead of an insider partnership, it does become a little bit more restrained and more money has to change hands for them to do it. And it also, I think the second thing is the way Disney seems to be billing its streaming service. I mean, you're using the Disney brand name. So that has a certain connotation. Back in the day, and I don't think they do this quite as much anymore. But that's also because Disney's become more focused with the movies that they release. But it used to be any movie that Disney released that was PG-13 and above, particularly their R-rated movies, used to be released through Touchstone. Because they didn't want, like, Disney always has that brand name of family entertainment.
Right.
So, you were never going to, I'm just going to say Lethal Weapon. if there was a movie like that, they were never going to release that under the Disney. It was a
Disney presents
Lethal Weapon, right?
It's okay to hate Jews.
Yeah, it doesn't. Renee Russo is now a Disney princess,
but you're not allowed to kill people.
No, you can kill people
Just
in Disney
Jews.
movies.
Just Jews and dads.
Yeah, okay, dads and moms Parents get killed all the time in Disney movies.
Yeah. It was inevitable that Marvel would end up with Disney, like, because every superhero, their parents die.
Issues.
Yeah, has their parents
Parent
die.
issues,
Yeah,
that's true. So, but yeah, I have a hard time seeing that Disney brand, like the Disney brand that's gonna have all this other, like, all these Disney Channel shows and Disney XD shows, and it seems like it's going to be a little bit more oriented to parents who are going to want to say, yeah, I'll pay to have a streaming service for Disney products because my kids want it so bad. It just feels like this is one of, like, as much as I'm not crazy about how CBS and each channel seems to be wanting to make their own streaming service, Disney seems to be the one that might actually succeed on its own just because of the power
has all the
of
kids
that brand
stuff.
name.
Yeah,
And
but they're taking Lucasfilm with them.
Yeah, Lucasfilm and Marvel. But that's also big for kids too.
Teenagers, yeah.
Yeah, well, Clone Wars, you can watch with your kids.
Yeah, but
yes,
I wouldn't
not
watch.
the
I wouldn't
kids.
Rogue One with my kids.
That's true, but I mean, Pirates of the Caribbean.
Because I don't like that movie.
All right, let's calm down. But Pirates of the Caribbean is also is a Disney product as well. Yeah. The first one was good.
The first one was fun. The first one was fun.
But like that's along, sort of the same adventure, as a Indiana Jones.
I suppose.
Or,
I'm not paying for that.
Well, you're gonna have to talk that over with Jenny and what you can do with the kids, because it's also gonna be Star Wars too. Like, if you're gonna want to rewatch episodes of Rebels or Clone Wars, like what do you do?
It's not going to be available anywhere, but through Disney.
I'm sure you could probably buy the series.
Yeah.
So that's probably, like, I'll probably end up
I don't
buying a
like
lot
this,
through
man.
Amazon.
I really don't like where we're going back to, like, I got to subscribe to 17 different streaming services to get my content. I might as well just leave it on cable then. Just forget streaming and just leave it on cable.
I think all the cord cutters might be going back to the cord at this point.
Yeah, you're nickel and dimey for every single streaming service. This is not, like, it's not going to work.
Right.
It's not going to work for anybody.
So here's our biggest story. The big story is Colin Trevorrow no longer being on Star Wars Episode 9. So a new report from Vulture sheds more light on the departure, except I just jumped forward one story. So actually, as reported on Tuesday, the initial Star Wars Episode 9 director Colin Trevorrow parted ways with Lucasfilm with an official statement from the studio citing different visions for the film. The subsequent report noted that script issues have continued to be the continuing sore spot with Episode 9's development.
I mean, I don't... Nobody's bigger than Star Wars. That's the bottom line. I mean, the last two guys, Lord and Miller, like, proved that. This guy's proved it. They're not letting anybody just have their way with Star Wars and it's okay to come and play with our toys, but within reason.
Yeah,
we got a plan,
and it makes sense from a brand control and also a consistency. When you have this many directors playing within a universe, you do want consistency and control with the Star Wars brand, and I think. Yes, I think there's an idealistic side of you want to have people have creative freedom within the Star Wars universe, and it was interesting. It was a very interesting model. Kind of the way Lucas had it, because he did actually have a lot of creative freedom within his brand, but it also meant that continuity wasn't necessarily the strongest.
It was fluid.
Yes, fluid is a very loose term for it, but yeah, that's probably the best way to describe it. I think that's what some people have found less refreshing about the Disney's Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
Is that you know that creators aren't going to have quite the level of freedom. Like, will there be room in this Star Wars universe for what Robot Chicken did with Star Wars? Because Lucas was totally on board with that.
Right, and gave them their blessing, yeah. No, probably not, but you're also not going to have the Christmas special either.
Yeah, or the prequels. So it's sort of it's a tough trade-off, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I mean, you may not get the very, very, like, edge of the best, but you're also not going to get the worst either. Like you're going to get a solid, consistent, like when you watch a Star Wars branded either movie or show or read a book or whatever they, content they put out, like you're going to get a consistent story, like a consistent level. And I'm totally for that. That's a good thing. That is a good thing.
Well, continuing with this story, and while we're doing this, I want you to think about this, Ben, while I'm reading some of the story. But think about also who you would want to direct Star Wars Episode 9.
Okay.
And who you think might end up doing.
Oh, okay.
So, a new report, though, from Vulture sheds more light, though, on Trevorrow's departure. Sources familiar with the production of Trevorrow's earlier films, The Book of Henry and Jurassic World, shared the following insight. During the making of Jurassic World, he focused a great deal of his creative energies on asserting his opinion, the executive explains, but because he had been personally hired by Spielberg, nobody could say, "You're fired." Once that film went through the roof and he chose to do Henry, Trevorrow was unbearable. He had an egotistical point of view, and he was always asserting that. The source backs speculation that ongoing tensions with Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy influenced Trevorrow's firing. There's one gatekeeper when it comes to Star Wars, and it's Kathleen Kennedy, says a veteran movie producer who has worked with the studio chief. If you rub Kennedy the wrong way, in any way, you're out. You're done. A lot of these young new directors want to come in and say, I want to do this and I want to do that. A lot of these guys, Lord and Miller, Colin Trevorrow, got very rich very fast, believed a lot of their own hype. They don't want to play by the rules. They want to do shit differently, and Kathleen Kennedy isn't going to fuck around with that.
It's a great quote.
It really is. I want to go on record with a quote like that. Why stay anonymous with a quote like that?
All right, so I just said that nobody's bigger than Star Wars. I would like to add
Yeah.
Kathleen Kennedy is bigger than Star Wars. Look, Kevin Feige's doing this with Marvel, and nobody gives him shit over it.
Well, yes, he has gotten some shit for it. Like,
when what's his name?
Edgar Wright.
And
not just Edgar Wright, but there was like with the constant change in directors for Thor 2.
Yeah.
And then also
when what's his name? Joss left. He was
Joss,
he
but
didn't,
not just Joss, but Jon Favreau too.
Yeah.
Between Iron Man 2 and 3.
I'm sorry, but I mean, like that's the price you pay to play in this universe. I don't understand. Like, if you were a comic book writer and you went to Marvel and was like, hey, I'm going to do, and they asked you, hey, will you write an X-Men story for you? And you were like, okay, well, I'm just going to change this, and this, and this, and this about the X-Men. And they went, whoa, no, you're not going to do that. Like, we got a whole thing going on here. Like, you can't just, like, change how this all works. You can be like, Wolverine's not going to have a healing factor anymore, and when he's going to pop flowers out of his arms instead of knives, and it's going to be a comedy. Like, wait, what? No, you can't do that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the interesting things, because while, ideally you want to have creators have artistic freedom, that's also what independent or stories inspired by these franchises can do. And that's where you can create new franchises. There's definitely lots of franchises that have been inspired by Star Wars or Lord of the Rings and other stories, and stories create inspiration for new stories, and combining, stories always does that. That's the creative process. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing wrong with saying, if you want to tell a really cool and interesting story that you think is going to be limited within the Star Wars universe and the Star Wars brand,
go play it in create a different sandbox to play in, and that's totally okay. And I get it. It's hard to make movies, blah, blah, blah. But, when somebody's putting $1 billion in it, they've already got a brand that is worldwide recognized, one of the most popular things on the planet Earth to date. Like, you give up some freedom to do that. I don't understand the hubris of thinking that they're going to change that. And that's what it seems like to me. It seems like hubris. Like,
yeah.
I don't go to work and tell them, nah, I think we should do it different, guys. I know I know you're making billions of dollars here doing your programming, but I got a different idea. Like, I have to play in their rules. Like, it's their company.
Yeah. So, your thoughts on
different directors?
Yeah.
Well,
who do you think? Well, let's start with who do you think will get the role?
Oh God, I have no idea who's going to get the role. Like, they seem to be trying to pick. It's interesting because Kathleen Kennedy's clearly like trying to pick young, upcoming directors that have a lot of heat and stuff like that, but they haven't been very successful with it.
They've had mixed success with it.
They've had JJ,
who's not young and upcoming.
Yeah, established.
But Rian Johnson, like, this is a very tonally. This has been very different from.
But Rian
from
Johnson,
all of the others.
they re-edited his movie and had somebody come in and fix a lot.
No,
of
not
it.
Rian Johnson.
Who
Ryan
was that?
Johnson's doing Last Jedi.
Oh,
It hasn't
who
come
was
out
before
yet.
that. Who was
You're thinking Gareth Edwards.
Gareth
Gareth
Edwards.
Edwards. Gareth Edwards also had very few movies to his name. Lord and Miller is a little bit more established. Trevorrow, I've always thought was.
I don't know why
a
they
bad
picked
choice.
it. That was a really bad
Yeah.
choice in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was not the guy I wanted to see have a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, Well, yeah. Good.
Okay, so
yeah.
I think they're trying to get like these young to mid-grade
Yeah.
directors, and then they're like, "Oh shit, it's not working." Somebody call Ron Howard.
Right.
Somebody call J.J. Abrams.
Yeah.
Like
Spielberg.
Yeah. So I think that's a legitimate name to throw into the.
You think
hat.
Spielberg could? End up
I
doing
would
9?
love to see a Spielberg directed Star Wars movie.
How do you? I would be down for that. Spielberg seems so close to Lucas that it seems like it's an odd
like that's like that would be a friendship breaking deal.
Yeah,
I feel like between the two of them.
Too.
But I also feel like if you threw
That
enough
being
money
said,
at
like
him, he
Lucas
might do
wanted
it.
him to direct the prequels.
And I think he would be great. I think he would do a great job.
Yeah.
I really do think Spielberg would do a great job with a Star Wars movie.
What's been funny is one of the news stories that a lot of people have been putting out as clickbait has been Lucas.
No. Stop. It's not going to happen. There's too much bad blood there.
Well, he apparently he meets pretty regularly with Kathleen Kennedy and gives his
Likes
notes on notes on what he thinks.
And then
should
they
happen.
curl it
Curl
in
it up
the
and throw it away.
trash.
I don't know.
Thanks, George. Garbage.
It's not the worst idea with a Kathleen Kennedy in clear charge. I actually wouldn't mind seeing it. It's not going to happen, and it shouldn't happen.
Why would you want to see that?
Because the guy has great ideas. He just needs someone who he has great collaboration with.
But then let him come up with the ideas and let somebody else at the helm run the thing. Like he's
That's
always
true.
been very stressed about the weight of building a Star Wars
yeah.
movie and stuff
But
like that.
you
He's
can-
never done well at it other than the first one.
And Clone Wars, when paired with Filoni, was
But
a
I
great
feel like
duo.
Filoni. Yeah, but again, that was just him throwing ideas and Filoni really running that show.
That's true. I think, I just want to say let's not completely throw George Lucas
Love George
out into the
Lucas,
cold,
but
in the Star Wars universe, let's not just leave him on Hoth.
He's sold. He's sold out. He's gone. It's not happening. We got to move on, people. It's for the good of everybody. It's for the good of George and his billions of dollars,
Right?
and it's for the good of us as the fandom.
Yeah, I think one of the things is sort of the qualities of what you want in a director for a Star Wars movie, though, is
Yeah.
a very, very specific idea. It can't necessarily be those hottest names or those auteurs. Like, I don't want Edgar Wright doing a saga episode. I would be interested to see what he would do with one of the spin-off movies, but I don't want him doing episode 9 or one of the main Skywalker.
Yeah, you got to go with a Ron Howard, a Steven Spielberg, like a real middle of the road.
Well, yes,
super popular director.
Yeah, one of the names that we, as far as up and coming and sort of interesting, like I don't know if stylistically, I don't think he necessarily fits in here, but I love Matthew Vaughn a lot.
I was just thinking about him too.
I think
But I'm like,
stylistically, he has to be a spin-off movie.
It's
right?
kind of a spin.
Yeah.
I would expect a spin-off. I think it would be tough for him to rein it in enough where you were like, what the hell is going on? This is nothing like the rest of the movies that we've seen.
Two names mentioned earlier during the X-Force story was Drew Goddard and Stephen DeKnight. Those are two guys I like a lot, but they don't necessarily have as much of a resume as I probably want for a Star Wars director,
especially to wrap up this series.
Right.
Like this is you gotta stick the ending on this one, man.
Absolutely. I think one of the names, and again also a guy with not enough experience and who originally was supposed to write episode 9 was Michael Arndt, and who wrote early versions of the Force Awakens script before they went more into let's go into soft reboot mode. I like Michael Arndt a lot. He was the guy who directed the guy who wrote Toy Story 3, and he's the guy who directed Little Miss Sunshine, which is one of my favorite movies. So I'd like to see what he could do. I think he definitely has a lot of the right sensibilities for a Star Wars movie and a saga movie. I think there's a name that's honestly pretty obvious, but he is working very, very hard on a very big movie right now, so I don't know if he'll be available in time. Joss Whedon seems to be, in my mind, the perfect pick for Star Wars Episode 9, who would keep the fun but still give you some good serious moments in a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, Joss is an obvious choice and young enough to do it and handle it. You've already had JJ. You might as well get Joss.
Right.
To bookend that trilogy. That's an excellent choice. I'll throw out two other names as long shots. Kevin Smith, who has proven in his recent years that he's able to play in other people's sandboxes, follow the rules, and do a great job with his TV directing on Flash and Supergirl. I mean, where they just keep giving him multiple episodes a season to direct because he's doing such a great job at it. He loves the genre. He knows it really well, and I think he'd be respectful and work with Kathleen Kennedy. He's never had a huge budget like that before, so that's the question of like, can he do all the special effects and stuff like that?
Right.
So there's a big question mark for that. So that's actually my third choice. My second choice is a name that we haven't heard in a while as far as directing goes, but it is actually one of those auteur directors, but is also crossed over into the mainstream and done really family-friendly, fun adventure stuff. Robert Rodriguez.
That would actually be a great pick.
That is a great pick in my mind.
I thought you were going to lead into Jon Favreau, but I was like, he's had some big work lately.
Yeah, he's done a lot of big work lately, but I would love to see Robert Rodriguez take on that final movie. I think it would be fantastic. His work, like his early stuff and the way he handles action, and like with the Mariachi trilogy that he did, how he handles action and framing and stuff like that, I think would make it for a really cool visual, interesting Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because I'm expecting a lot of duels and stuff like that, and a lot of tension between people in that third Star Wars. So I think he would handle that really well. And he also did Lava Girl and Shark Boy,
right?
Which
Spy
Kids and stuff like that. So he can handle special effects. He can handle big visual things, and has a great eye for it as well. Like both of those were really commercially successful, and so I think he would be a great director too.
Yeah. You said that was your second pick, or
and then Joss would be
right,
number one, obviously.
Thinking about Favreau, I'd throw him in there. Obviously, I wouldn't pick. Thinking about some of the recent names with Marvel movies. Obviously, some of these guys don't necessarily have time to do this movie, but the Russo brothers would be a very interesting pick. Gunn definitely doesn't have the time to do it, but I wouldn't pick him for a saga movie. I don't think.
He's a little too quirky.
Yeah, I would say though, I'm very, again, this is like counting your, this is way too early, but everything looks great about this movie. I'd be very excited to see what Taika Waititi could do with a Star Wars movie based on all of our hype with Thor 3.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah,
I mean, it looks great so far.
It does.
Trailers look amazing.
Yeah, there've been very few movies that the trailers have gotten me this excited about.
Yeah.
So usually, this is the hype level that's usually reserved for Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
For me.
I agree. I can't believe I'm hyped for a Thor movie.
Well, let's go into this is definitely getting into spoiler territory here, so I just want to let you know before we get into this. But Bojack Horseman, new season out.
Oh my God, dude.
Spoilers. If you don't want to know what happens, and this time we'll probably actually get into spoilers, unlike our Inhumans review.
We were just like, meh.
I think that's how...
We were so underwhelmed by it, we didn't even want to talk about it.
Which is rare for us. Even for bad movies, we go in depth.
It was so uninspired.
Yeah.
This show, God
complete
damn.
opposite.
God, this was a soul-crushing, the entire season, right up to the last episode. I was like, it's just getting worse and worse.
That first episode was light.
Yeah.
And it was good. Like, I was so happy that they went with a light episode. And I also thought it was bold that they didn't start off with Bojack at all. That first episode.
Yeah.
The way they've developed all of these characters into pretty fully fleshed characters. Bojack isn't carrying the story by himself because he's reached a very interesting point at the end of last season. So now he's on a very different journey. He's no longer just like fucking up and then like bemoaning his life.
Fuck up, yeah.
Now he is actively trying to correct who he is.
His narcissism, yeah.
And he's done, honestly,
he's more introspective, but I don't think he's any more successful.
I actually would disagree. Because he takes legitimate action to help the people around him. And while sometimes it is misguided, it isn't fucking things up beyond repair the way it always used to happen. And in a big spoiler, again, huge spoiler, one of the big fuck-ups that you think he makes is honestly a terrible thing that his mother does.
Yeah, he still fucks that relationship up.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I see what and you're right. He is, like, the way that he handles Princess Caroline at the, like, the last episode of the season is, like, sort of like this, like it's like somebody's holding your head in a toilet and you can't breathe.
Yeah.
And you're just like just as you're about to pass out and take a deep breath of toilet water and kill yourself, they pull your head out of the water and you're like, and all this air comes rushing back into you and you're like, oh my God, there's life still in these characters.
Yeah.
Because that whole season is just like, it's just a constant dive into bad things happening for everybody.
Even the light storylines, even Mr. Peanut Butter has a very very dark story, which you would never think, we'll get back into some of the story beats, but I just want to stop and again, like we've always stopped and had to admire like just the depth and brilliance on the show, but the voice acting on this show is truly amazing. Like it's funny. I was watching some, like, you know, there's a lot of like terrible made for TV movies that I tend to watch with my mom on the weekends because she doesn't necessarily have the best taste in movies, but you know, and it's funny. Like I totally like, you know, made for TV movies. You know, you don't really need to watch much of it to know what's happening. You know, so very often, like I kind of pay attention to how bad the reads are because I can tell like when a line is done in ADR, and like you can hear that, like even though they're out in the open, like you hear someone with a studio voice doing a read that doesn't match physically what they're doing, so it just comes off as really bad and weird acting in a lot of those moments, just because they don't know how, like they just have a bad director in the studio with them who isn't able to pull that kind of like genuine
performance.
Yeah, exactly. So which has always been, when I watch any cartoon, is sort of a standard I do think about, which is a problem I've had with a lot of recent DC movies, which is why I was kind of depressed to hear that Andrea Romano, who directed a lot of cartoons that we all have watched. If you've ever watched a cartoon, you've probably watched something Andrea Romano has done the voice direction and voice casting on. But she did like Batman the Animated Series, Tiny Toons, Pinky the Brain, you know. Anything that's ever happened, she's been if it's
been good, she's had her fingers in it.
Exactly. And it's been very obvious in a lot of those the recent DC movies. The good ones, you know, obviously have some pretty good voice acting. A lot of the recent ones I'm not crazy about. This show, not just with the type of talent that they have, like you had Andre Braugher as
Woodchuck.
Yes, as Woodchuck. Like I heard that and I was like, I know that voice.
I did too.
And I was like, wait a minute. Like, is that Andre Braugher?
Oh my God.
How'd they get him on Bojack?
I thought the same thing. I was like, what a great pull.
Right?
What a great actor for that role. Because he's such a serious role. I know he's in
Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which I started binging recently.
I heard it's
totally hooked on.
Is it really good?
Yeah, I was surprised because I don't like Andy Samberg.
Yeah, I don't either.
I find it so. I know this is a side turn with this one, but Michael Schur, who is the producer of this, was also a producer on shows like The Office, The Good Place, Parks and Rec, and particularly with Parks and Rec, because I don't like Amy Poehler, and I never really found her funny on the show, but his side characters were so great on Parks and Rec, and I find that's sort of the case with Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Unlike The Office, which had a very strong core, and The Good Place, which has a very strong core as well. But yeah, Brooklyn Nine-Nine is there. But coming back to, you have, I forget his name, Paul, whatever, as Mr. Peanut Butter.
I have to look at it. I can't remember names right now.
Yeah, dude wears like a bow tie half the time. Yeah. Will Arnett, one of my favorite actors, period. But absolutely nailing.
Amy Sedaris is fantastic
as Princess Carolyn.
Yeah.
Who, that's also another surprise. They took her character in a very interesting direction last season, and they've really fleshed that character out. Man, I know.
Alison Brie as Diane is fantastic. I mean, everybody's fan. I even like Keith Olbermann, and I hate Keith Olbermann.
Right? Keith Olbermann, and then who's the dude from Breaking Bad? Aaron Paul.
Aaron Paul, yeah,
is also
who's
great.
the producer of the show, yeah.
And then there's another name I'm thinking of, dude who was in Office Space, Drew Carey show. As Judah,
Judah,
the assistant.
Yeah, Diedrich Bader.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's
great. Yeah,
it's an all-around amazing cast.
Yeah,
and at their absolute best.
Yeah, everybody really, really rises to the occasion. Patton Oswalt has voices in there that are just fantastic. It's so this season though, like the track of it is so dark. So here's
so
my
soul
thing.
Crushing.
It is so soul crushing. It reminds me very much of the second season of F is for Family.
Yeah.
Took a dark turn like this too.
You're right.
And it seems to be like the Netflix animated thing now of like it's a comedy the first season, the second season shit goes bad.
Yes.
Like, and I don't mind that. I guess I would like if you're gonna especially for F is for Family, it bothered me a little bit more than it did for this show because this show has always had sort of a dark bent to it.
Even from the beginning, it always had a dark bent. It's progressively gotten darker.
Yeah.
And this season it was very dark, but it was still on par in a lot of ways with the third season. It just took that darkness past just Bojack and took it to all the
everybody
characters.
Went dark. Yeah.
Right.
So there was very little there were very few episodes, very few moments even of me actually getting joy out of the show.
Right.
I was hooked. I couldn't look away. I binged the shit out of this show, but it wasn't fun.
Yeah,
it wasn't funny.
Yeah, there were funny moments here and there.
Brief.
Dennis Clowns was pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
And then there were lots of gimmicks, but I mean, Aaron Paul's character as an asexual discovering himself and who he is was one of the developed was probably one of the least interesting, but it was still a very well developed arc.
My favorite part about that, the only thing I liked about that storyline is when Princess Caroline would talk about pitching a movie, and it was just puns and rhymes.
Actor names.
Yes, just all rolling into each other. Everything rhymed. That was the best gimmick about that entire storyline.
Jokes about a difference between a manager and an agent.
Yeah.
There was a lot of good stuff like that, just kind of shining a light on sort of Hollywood.
Inside Hollywood.
There was a very interesting thing. I don't remember if it was her that was talking about it. It was Princess Carolyn or if it was another character. But the whole idea of us getting caught up in stories and versus real life. It was a little monologue that she has in the final episode that was incredible.
Yeah, there's a lot of really deep moments. Like the idea when she has that when the Princess Caroline episode where you think that it's her granddaughter in the future telling the story about Princess Caroline.
That inside I collapsed. There were so many inside I collapsed moments.
And just Bojack dealing with his mom. I thought of you so often. I was watching. I was like, "Oh, poor. How did Addy get through this fucking season? This is awful,
dude." The end of episode 11, which is a flashback in a very interesting way. They treat a flashback because you do get a very dark episode that explains Bojack's grandparents. At a summer home, along with him sort of rebuilding the summer home and this other character's past and them all trying to sort of recuperate and sort of the darkness in his family history.
Ending with his grandma getting a fucking lobotomy.
Not ending with his grandmother getting a lobotomy, which alone is dark. But but then him destroying the house, was so everything you've built, there was something.
There was no catharsis in it.
Yes, and that's what I find so amazing about this show is I look forward to this in a very weird way. It's so different from any other piece of media that I've ever anticipated because there is no catharsis, but it is all catharsis too, because it's so real and unreal at the same moment that it feels like, even though Bojack and all of this is in a Hollywood fabricated world that is known to be
so fake,
right, but there's still,
and everything's so fantastical, there's talking animals,
anthropomorphized animals. Right. You're just kind of like, how are you going to deal with real issues? But I can't think of a lot of movies or TV shows that have dealt with this kind of introspective character moments. I think that's what I liked about Guardians of the Galaxy 2, what I like about Little Miss Sunshine. Those movies have a little bit of that, and this definitely is all that.
Yeah.
And it's not, early on I would have said easily this is sort of nihilistic, but it actually isn't.
No, there's a lot of nihilism in it, and it deals with it, but it always seems to come out with like a hopeful message by the end.
Right.
Of like, no, there is light at the end of the tunnel, but you gotta get through the tunnel, motherfucker. Dude, the episode that got me really bad was the episode where he's doing a lot of self-talk.
Yeah.
And he's just like, oh, you're stupid. You're stupid shit.
Right.
What are you doing, you stupid dumb fuck? Hey, you're going to go drink. You stupid shit. And I was just like, oh, my God. Like, I was having such a hard time with that.
Yeah,
like, it was late. It was like 1 a.m. I was already like super tired, and I had a really shitty day.
Because I can't pretend I don't have moments like that. And I think a lot of I'm pretty sure if people were honest that admit that they have moments like that. But that was because I marathoned a bunch, and that was the one that I said, all right, I'm stopping. Like after this, just I took like a 30-minute break from some Bojack and then got back on.
We're gonna go get on the treadmill.
Well, no, I downloaded all the episodes so I could watch them on the Metro.
I like your commitment, Addy.
Right? Because I got home in time to watch the last 2 episodes at home, and those last 2 episodes, man.
The last one was good. Like I really needed that last one because the one right before it.
Well, that 11,
so
I definitely teared up at the very end. It got me when Bojack has that conversation with his mom when his mom asks where they are, and he sort of has to like he tells the story. I cried. Like I'm not gonna even pretend on that. Like that totally got me. Like it was just like and that it's a situation that we've talked about like some of the similarities in my life, but it's a very different set of circumstances than what I'm dealing with in some of my own family drama and all of that. But it was such a heartfelt moment that I couldn't believe that I was crying at a cartoon horse telling his cartoon horse who's on a failed sitcom.
Oh.
But it was such a real and heartfelt moment that I can't imagine you not feeling something in that. You don't have to cry at that moment. But
you do have to respect that they've done such a great job with the writing and the character development through these seasons to make that show. It is one of the best things out there right now by far. And I can't wait to see another 5 or 6 seasons of this show and see where it goes. I mean, it's brilliant. It is really brilliant. So,
well,
catharsis, man.
On that note, as we were talking about the artifice of Hollywood. The primetime Emmys are going to be on CBS at 8 on Sunday. If you care about stuff like that, I know I won't be watching it, and I probably will. I don't even know who's nominated or who isn't.
I give a rat's ass.
But I mean, at the same time, that kind of stuff does help some of our better writers sometimes get good jobs. So that is a nice thing to.
Props to the winners, I guess.
You know what? Here's where I do think it's important. Like as long as Scott people like Scott Buck don't win stuff like that, there's less of an opportunity for him to keep getting jobs in Hollywood.
Which is fine. I'm just not willing to.
And when the good writers and producers and showrunners do, then they get a chance to do greater and bigger projects.
We'll see.
That's where it does matter.
Here's where I'm not willing to sit through it and listen to all of like the politicized speeches. Yeah. I'm just not willing to do. I'm just not willing to do it.
I'm more interested in maybe seeing after the fact, seeing like, oh, if shows that I like got Emmys, then
but I'm not going to sit down and watch
but
it.
I'm long done.
It's masturbation, man. Yeah. It's Hollywood masturbation.
Absolutely. These people I don't know.
And the reason I'm bitter about it is that I'm not involved.
Well, on that note, there are 2 questions that we have for you. Who do you want to see direct Star Wars Episode 9? And for that matter, who do you think may end up actually directing Star Wars Episode 9? And just so you know, Rian Johnson has not confirmed that he won't direct Episode 9 clearly, but he's kind of suggested that he probably
I'm going to throw out a name real quickly.
Sure.
I'm available.
Let's move on from that. Your suggestions, we would love to hear them. And also, we'd love to hear your thoughts on a 4th Powerpuff Girl name. And we'll send you Stay Scruffy My Nerf Herder sticker. You just can leave it on any of our social media platforms. All of that you can find on our website, certainpov.com. Again, our website is certainpov.com. And until next week, stay scruffy, my Nerf Herders.
Thanks for listening to Certain Point of View. Don't miss an episode. Just subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on iTunes. Head over to certainpov.com.